delivering just one classic full-length LP plus a smattering of singles during their run of recording in the 1970s in Jamaica. Reggae duo Earth and Stone may not be familiar to many, but remain well-loved by fans of the music. Stay tuned for my look at Earth and Stone. Coming at a time when there was a plethora of talented Jamaican vocal groups, all vying for a chance to record at the bustling studios around the capital city of Kingston, Earth and Stone nonetheless managed to make their mark with a body of work of an almost universally high standard, a balance of original songs leaning towards roots and culture and consciousness, lyrical subjects, but with enough flexibility to delve into the occasional more romantic offering, and often with a plaintive or melancholy timbre to their tightly meshed harmonies, sometimes veering into bitterness or even outrage depending on the song. And more unusually, they were a duo rather than the more common trio or even larger format of the era. The chemistry of the group would be between two friends, Clifton Howell and Albert Bailey, who had met in their late teens. Clifton had been born in the rural parish of St. Catharines before moving to the capital city of Kingston, had grown up singing in the church choir. Albert, meanwhile, had been born in the city. They did not know each other until being introduced by a mutual friend who knew that they both loved singing. Once they met, the chemistry was established. They decided to form a group together. From the start, their focus would be on original songs rather than cover material, and their first name, coined by Albert, would be The Officials. However, in the early days, music would be something of a hobby for them, though they were passionate about it. They were serious about it. Albert was studying electrical work, while Clifton was an apprentice plumber, so music would have to occur on evenings, weekends, when they were free from other commitments. As they began writing songs together, they would occasionally dabble in with having a third member in the group, but it was apparent that the real dynamic of the group was between the two of them, their personal friendship, and the way their voices blended together. When they felt they were ready, they went for their first audition at Duke Reid's Treasure Isle studio with an original song they had come up with called Your Love is Like Ice Cream. However, they did not make the cut at that point. They decided to take a break, continue practicing their harmonies. They learned to play guitar, picking up basic chord structures, and when they felt they were more polished, they went for another audition, this time at the famed Sunday sessions at Cox and Dodd's Studio 1 at 13 Brentford Road. This time they made the grade, were accepted, brought into the recording studio where they began working with the Studio One house band, Leroy Siblas laying down a bass line for their very first record, mournful, plaintive song called 10 Years Ago, which is actually has a theme of deliverance from oppression. It's quite a political song, though the group would word it very obliquely, keep it somewhat open-ended and neutral to avoid any repercussions from one political party or the other. This was around 1972, and there was a hotly contested election in Jamaica, which saw Michael Manley and his socialist-leaning People's National Party win the election, overthrow the conservative Jamaican Labour Party, which the song 10 years ago is hailing as a deliverance from the previous 10 years of oppression. 10 years ago, by the Officials, came out as a 7-inch single, got a little bit of radio play, but didn't do very much for the group. They would record a couple of other songs for Studio One, which were not released at the time. One, Distant Drums, would later appear in 2017 as part of a Studio One dubplate series 7-inch box set from Soul Jazz Records. That box set sold out very quickly, quite expensive nowadays. Meanwhile, their first song 10 years ago as the Officials can be found also on the 2017 compilation from Studio One, The Number One Sound from the Vaults, Volume 1, 10 years ago by the Officials.
10 years ago, I was suffering under the hands of those wicked men. Now that I'm free to do my thing, man and man, gonna live life now. But separation, free starvation, yeah. Man and man, gonna live life now.
With not much else happening for them at Studio One, some further songs they had recorded going unreleased at the time, Clifton and Albert would make the decision to leave Studio One. They would take another pause, another interlude from the music business, and next resurface as the Officials at an open audition held at Dynamic Studios, overseen by in-house producer Niney the Observer. There they would beat out a lineup of hopefuls to record a song called Babylonians, deeply dread, more defiant in nature than 10 years ago. Also a further song called Irie Irie. The song Babylonians by the Officials would be a deep roots nugget just reissued as of late 2023 by the European Roots Vibration label. Babylonians by the Officials, aka Earth and Stone, having not yet settled on that name. Next, Clifton and Albert would make their way to Lee Perry's Black Ark studio, but he did not like the name The Officials. He would dub them The Arks. They would record at least one song that I know of there called Forgive I Lord, very dread, deep Black Ark nugget, would surface as a single at some point, has since been reissued on an unofficial reissue. However, Earth and Stone's big break was yet to come.
There's a bunch of Babylonians coming after me. I don't want them to catch me, not at all. They will devour me. Babylonians, Babylonians.
A decisive turn in the fortunes of Clifton and Albert would occur in the mid-1970s when a friend of theirs, fellow singer Ronnie Davis, formerly of the Tenors vocal group, brought them down to Channel One studio on Maxfield Avenue to audition before studio head Jojo Hookham. Still going by the name The Arks that had been given to them by Lee Perry, Clifton and Albert would sing a song for Jojo that they had written, a song of protest against unjust imprisonment called Jailhouse Set Me Free. Before they could finish the song, he told them to stop and invited them to come in the studio and record it. Channel One was just getting off the ground with a series of hits by artists like the Mighty Diamonds, featuring the crisp powerful, militant, so-called double drumming style of Sly Dunbar, and the house band The Revolutionaries, establishing the rockers sound as the new direction of reggae. And JoJo invited them to come record that song for him. However, once again, he did not like their group name. They were workshopping a new name back and forth, and his girlfriend suggested Earth and Stone, which sounded suitably mysterious and elemental, and that would be their newly minted name. The song would come out as a 7-inch single, initially titled "Jah Will Cut You Down," somewhat confusingly, and would hit number 1 in the Jamaican charts, featuring Sly Dunbar on drums, Ranchy McLean on bass, and the powerful rocker sound of Channel 1 in its first flush of success, the first hit that truly established Earth and Stone and their future direction. Runaway success of Jailhouse Set Me Free would have an ironic postscript one day when Clifton was standing outside on the street, was approached by Jamaican police who proceeded to rough him up, throw him down to the pavement, and drag him off to prison, where he was held overnight before being released the next day when it was determined that he was an entertainer, not a criminal. Meanwhile, he and Albert would continue crafting a series of songs over the next few years, backed by the Channel 1 house band The Revolutionaries, and appearing as 7-inch singles on the various Channel 1 house labels. These would include False Ruler, taking to task political leaders who don't care about the people they're supposed to represent and warning them that you have to get a beating. A dub of this song would appear on an early Channel 1 dub LP called Sata Dub Strictly Roots, surfacing around the mid-1970s. No song titles on this one, but the track that leads off side B, a dub to Earth and Stone's False Rulers. This is a DKR Records reissue from a few years back. Meanwhile, Holy Land of Home and Three Wise Men would have a more biblical, spiritual feel, with ethereal harmonies evoking those of the Abyssinians. In Time to Come would be a prophetic song, reportedly commenting on the peace treaty of Jamaica in the late 1970s, occurring between the warring political gangs, again, as was Earth and Stone's habit of keeping things somewhat neutrally worded to avoid offending one side or the other, leading to possible or potential repercussions. Devil Must Have Made You, continuing that very indignant, outraged tone from Jailhouse Set Me Free, taking aim at someone who has done them wrong, mistreated them in some way. The group would also find time for some fairly plaintive, melancholy love songs. Once Bitten, Twice Shy, taking a rueful look at the other side of love, the heart-worn and hurt side of love, and That's the Way You Feel About Me, a particularly melancholy tone to that one. The group's harmonies heard to good effect on many of these sides, recorded for Channel 1 as Earth and Stone come into their own. 1977, there began to be talk of an Earth and Stone LP release, collecting these sides they had done for Channel One Studios, and to be commissioned by a UK-based record label called Cha Cha. This would ultimately appear in a lavish gatefold pressing as Kool Roots, the first and only full-length LP released by Earth and Stone, something of a Roots classic, Kool spelt with a K, and the cover showing Clifton and Albert singing before the microphones inside Channel One studio. Pianist Gladstone Anderson visible on the back cover, and the inside gatefold showing the duo in a more relaxed mood. This would be a double LP release, one side collecting many of those hits from the preceding couple of years, leading off with False Ruler, going on to Holy Land of Home, Devil Must Have Made You, Free Black Man, and that first hit, Jailhouse Set Me Free. And this would appear on Cha Cha Records, only in the UK, never released in Jamaica. It's original pressing. I paid up for this one when I found it. One of the more expensive secondhand records I ever bought. I had spotted a copy being sold by a friend of mine, passed on it, then kind of regretted it. Didn't see it again for a year or two until he came up with another copy for sale, maybe even the same one. Finally had to go for it this time. Kool Roots on Cha Cha by Earth and Stone, their first full-length and only full-length LP. And this would include a bonus dub LP, full-length dub counterpart to all the tracks. Kool Roots dub on this one, spelt with a C on the label. Kool. And this would be somewhat in the fashion of the time. Channel One did a similar strategy with the Mighty Diamonds Deeper Roots LP, which also included a bonus dub LP to try and entice buyers. Earth and Stone finally had an LP release. Many vocal groups never managed to get one, something of a Roots classic. However, there was more material they had recorded at Channel One that they felt could have hit. They had done a song called Give Me. Again, another one of those outraged cries for getting what they feel, the compensation they feel is owed to them. Another strident Roots song. This is a Channel One reissue, 12-inch reissue from a few years ago. No title listed on the B-side, but it is a cover of the Abyssinians' Sata Masagana. There was more material like this recorded at Channel One that Earth and Stone felt could have been hits with proper promotion, but they were feeling left behind, overlooked in favor of bigger name acts like the Mighty Diamonds and their work for Channel One, and feeling slighted. Despite a high-profile LP release, in the UK at least, Clifton and Albert were beginning to feel like they were shuffled off to the sidelines at Channel One, which had an expanding roster of acts, many bigger names than they were, although they were sharing stages at the time with the likes of Dennis Brown, Gregory Isaacs, Delroy Wilson, and others. They had material that they felt could have been a hit songs that was being left on the shelf, not released. Accordingly, they began to expand their roster of producers they were working for. Rather than just directly record for Channel 1, they would often remain at the studio using the same musicians, but now recording for the independent producers who would just rent the studio for hire, but resulting in a very consistent body of work for Earth and Stone. For Jamaica's ranking female producer, Sonia Pottinger, they would record a pensive song called No Time to Lose. That can be found on the 1996 compilation from Heartbeat Records called The Reggae Train, Sonia Pottinger Productions. Here she is on the disc. And the second track on here is the pensive No Time to Lose by Earth and Stone. They would record for freelance producer by the name of Ossie Hibbert, recording a song called Migrate, and also one called Raindrops, a cover of the reverb-drenched cover of the American R&B hit by Dee Clark. That would appear on a J&M 12-inch single, Earth and Stone with Raindrops. This was a local find for me back in the day. Raindrops, that song, would also appear on an LP accredited in part to Earth and Stone, appearing in the late 1970s. This is only a CDR copy with a cover I printed out myself, but the LP is titled Back to Africa, Earth and Stone, credited in the title, yet they only contribute 3 songs to it, including Raindrops. The rest of the songs either by singer Philip Fraser or fellow vocal group The Gay Lads. Quite a good LP, a bit hard to get on vinyl. Back to Africa by Earth and Stone in part, but not a full LP by them. Over at Joe Gibbs' studio, a rare foray outside of Channel 1 for Earth and Stone, they would contribute Wicked Happy Dress Back, which would find its way to a Joe Gibbs Various Artists compilation called United Dreadlocks Volume 1 on the Joe Gibbs label. And that would sit very nicely alongside songs by Gregory Isaacs, Dennis Brown, Junior Delgado, Junior Ross and the Spear, and others. Third song on side 1, Wicked Happy Dress Back by Earth and Stone. However, by the late 1970s, it seemed that Earth and Stone were beginning to run out of steam, perhaps, as their output slowed down. As the 1980s dawned, there was a shift in the music. The dance hall style of reggae began to come to the fore. The roots reggae of the 1970s, very spiritual, very roots and culture oriented, of which Earth and Stone had been a part, beginning to lose sway a bit. There was also a shift in the political climate. In the first couple of years of the 1980s, the socialist-leaning People's National Party lost power. The conservative Jamaican Labour Party coming back into office. At some point, Clifton and Albert, while maintaining their personal friendship, decided to put Earth and Stone to rest, go their separate ways. Albert would become more spiritual, eventually become a minister, and turn his back on secular music. Clifton, meanwhile, was still working as a plumber, would immigrate to the United States. They would stay in touch. Clifton would still keep a hand in music to some degree as time allowed, but Earth and Stone, as a dual entity between the two of them, had been put to rest. In the mid-1990s, 1996, I believe, the UK Pressure Sounds reissue label put Kool Roots out on the market again for a whole new generation of fans to discover, including myself. Kool Roots by Earth and Stone, appearing as only the 11th release on Pressure Sounds, 1996. You can see the difference between the original and the reissue there. Over the years, a number of Earth and Stone songs would continue to resurface in various new editions, new reissues. An obscure song, Coming In, appearing on Mike Brooks's Coptic Lion label a few years back, 7-inch single, keeping Earth and Stone's music alive into decades to come, and for a whole new generation of listeners who did not get to experience them at the time. This has been my look at Earth and Stone, guys. Thank you for watching. Cheers.